Bar for Bar album reviews. Carriér, Terrance. Terrance is the latest project from Bay Area native Carriér, and it's my first time really checking his music out. Going into this project, I honestly had no idea what to expect. Bay Area music has this, stereotypical sound that everyone associates with it, but seeing as we've got features from the Wolves, Kevin Allen, and Mo Green, it's safe to assume that we're in for something unique. This album comes in at a total runtime of 36 minutes with 11 tracks, so it's definitely a quick listen, which starts off with the intro track, April 11th. April 11th has us hearing from T's mother, where she's talking about the day that he was born, and all the commotion in the hospital when they all found out and realized that he was 11 pounds. It's both touching to hear her reminisce about it, and to have her voice included here, as well as just hilarious when she didn't believe the nurse when they said how much T weighed. This intro flows really well into the first song on the album, Situations. This track, as well as many others on this album, gives us a more personal look into his life and some of the situations that he's been through. And this one in particular touches on a lot, but I'll go through some of the topics briefly. He starts off the track saying that he's coming off of what seemed to be the worst year ever, which is likely in reference to the train wreck of a year that was 2020, but it's possible that there was other things happening. He then goes on to talk about how he's so invested in his music and his craft that he's struggled monetarily, even though he's got a bunch of followers. And that's something that I feel like a lot of people on the outside overlook. Just because there's people following you, that doesn't mean that they're fans or supporters. It's really a trip when you realize that. This can definitely lead someone to a dark place, which he mentions, but luckily he had some OGs looking out for him that really pushed him to get the money up. And even though at first he wasn't really, happy with the way that they told him, he realized, no, that's probably the way to go. And by the end of the track, it just has him sounding way more optimistic about everything. Next we have Claim It, which is really just about claiming everything that is meant for you. Claiming what's meant for you just isn't really just going after what you feel you deserve, because you can obviously feel you deserve anything, but instead it's more working towards what you want and, again, what you feel you deserve in life. Even though he says that it's not really on some gamer shit, it's easy to think of it like you're grinding to get to a higher level, or you're trying to get materials for a piece of equipment. Another way to think of it is the way that he said it himself. If you want it, you gotta claim it. I guess the way that I'm explaining it makes it sound hella preachy, but it's definitely done in a way that's pretty chill and dope, and I guess motivating is a good way to put it. Gucci tube socks may sound like he just wants to get a pair of Gucci socks on the surface, and although that may be true, there's a bit more to it than that. The majority of the track is about grinding and hustling to get the bread up, but also being smart about your money. He mentions how he could buy a Rolex or an Audemars, but he knows there is a time and place for it. So for now, he's on his grind. He also mentions a few things to do with your money, or at least what he does with his money, rather than just spending it on material things. So buying land or houses and investing in stocks. Personally, I feel like you gotta make your money work for you rather than just spending it on things that depreciate in value, at least at first. Personally, I have no problem with people buying material things if you want. I'd be buying random things all the time. But it's also important to be smart with a good portion of your money. This brings us to the first of two tracks with the feature, Black Owned, which features Kevin Allen. This track is about himself and how Carriér is essentially a black-owned business. He starts off saying how he idolizes entrepreneurs and rap moguls because of their come-up, which leads to his work ethic. He acknowledges that even if he didn't have talent, he'd be fine because of his business-focused mindset. Before he wraps up his verse, he brings in the idea that there are some white people who take advantage of black culture while ignoring the fact that they've never had to deal with some of the issues that black people have to deal with, like getting denied for loans. If you've watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that's just a huge part of it. It's how even someone who's so high up and has a lot of importance can't get approved for a loan. Kev brings in a dope verse as well, dropping gems about how life is stressful and people can be petty and jealous, which really can be summed up with the line, "The grass ain't greener on a different lawn, water yours." I think that line in itself really is just the best way to sum up his entire verse. We then get Italian Rope Interlude, which I feel is only called an interlude because it's shorter, but it is a dope track still. The gist of it is that his happiness is what matters most, and a lot of what he does is for his own happiness. And, I feel like that's something that we all forget. I mean, I know I do a lot of things for others all the time rather than for myself. So once you realize that, it's good to start focusing on yourself some more. Next, we get the second feature on the album with the track Rich, which features Mo Green. The beat on this track is a little bit different from the others so far, but it's still really good and smooth. This track goes in a slightly different direction than some of the others, where both T and Mo are on their braggadocious shit, talking about how they got money now, while alluding to the path that they took to get here. It's definitely a nice switch up for sure. Confidence is pretty straightforward with his message, which is that he loves women with confidence. He also takes that idea and applies it to himself a bit, and others, it feels. He does so by saying how he's been moving and how sometimes confidence manifests itself in others. The others here take their confidence and turn it into cockiness sometimes, though, and end up blocking their own blessings. Confidence is, to me, feels to be that one of those things that confidence, to me, feels like one of those things that could really go either way. Like, you can be humble with it because you are confident in yourself, or you can be overly confident and let it consume you, and you become cocky, and then end up shutting out a bunch of people, and no one likes you. With Flowers, we have him proclaiming, "Give me my flowers while I can still smell them." This is honestly something that I feel that we all need to do more frequently for so many people. When you're creative, regardless of the space, you want people's approval. Like, even if you feel like you don't, you do want someone's approval. And that's something that's not really given as often. Most frequently, the negativity shines through when, people are talking about what you do. And it's not that it's a majority like that. It's really just there is a vocal minority. Most people probably really do fuck with you, but they won't say anything until you're gone. Early on in the track, he's had someone asking for tips, and one of my favorite tips from him is 7 days I be on the grind, you just weak. The rest of the track is pretty dope and has him talking about the things he did. Another thing that I took from this track, as well as the whole album, which I guess I should probably know by now living in the Bay, is that you gotta grind, because shit is expensive here. Like, taxes are high, just the cost of living, and then everyone has to have a side hustle. It's crazy. The track then ends with another bit from his mother, which I found really touching. It's similar to the intro. She talks a bit again about his birth, which is because everyone was coming in and writing about him, but also how he's been basically a celebrity since birth, and how because he was such an easy child to raise, he basically made her really happy to be a mother, and she went on to have a few more kids as well. I don't know, it's just something about having his mom on here that really just makes me happy. As Terrance begins to wrap up, we get the track 365. This track has Terrance talking about someone he was involved with and how he appreciates them, and it sounds like wants to be with them again. It sounds like there may have been some issues in the relationship, possibly from him wanting control. I don't think the control is necessarily just about the relationship, because, while that is a huge thing, people can be controlling, I think it could be him wanting control over a lot more than just that. He wants to make sure that everything that he does goes as planned. And it's definitely something that I feel that others can relate to, because it's scary not knowing how things are going to go, even if you prepare for every possible outcome. Letting go of that need, however hard it may be beneficial in the long run. Throughout the rest of the track, he talks about how whenever they're together, it feels like heaven on earth, and how she's taught him things like unconditional love. This track is done in a way that I feel that pretty much everyone can relate to in some capacity. Even if you've never been in a relationship, you can see all the things that he's mentioned as something that you may want or didn't know about relationships that you may want in the future, which I thought was pretty dope. The final track on this album is Peace of Mind. As an outro to this album, it's pretty solid because it wraps everything up pretty well. It kind of goes in a similar way as Rich in the sense that it's a bit braggadocious, but not necessarily to that extent. He mentions all these things that he's doing and how he's selective with whom he helps out, but ends it by saying that he'd trade this life and fame for peace of mind. This sentiment is amplified with him saying, "You never know who watching, gotta move with caution," which really does make it sound like he's paranoid, but it's real. There's people watching everywhere. Overall, this album was really good. I honestly had no idea what to expect because, like I mentioned, this was my first exposure to T. Carriér, but this just blew me away. Even though he's got a decent amount of projects out already, I feel that this is a pretty good introduction to him because he gives so much of himself on this one. Another major thing of note is, again, like I said in the intro, the Bay Area has a wide variety of music out there. Even if it's not what's promoted by prominent publications, even ones in the Bay, you know who you are. You definitely need to check this out. My favorite tracks are Situations, Black Owned, Rich, Flowers, and 365. I look forward to whatever T. Carriér may have in store for us next, whether that be via acting or music. I know it's going to be dope. But like I said, definitely check out this project. Everything from the production to the lyrics to the sequencing, it's just so solid, and it's all in a nice 36-minute package. That's all I have for this review. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this album, if you've checked it out. If you haven't, definitely do so. I'd say it's worth it. And let me know what your favorite tracks are. And also, like and subscribe if you want to see more content and reviews like this. Maybe share this review with a friend if you feel so kindly. And with that said, thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.